Once again, my name is Keith Whalen. I'm joined here today by Melissa Olson, our HCM practice manager, and Kevin Hamilton, one of our foremost experts on benefits and open enrollment, with a presentation on open enrollment and Landmark V11. And with that, I give you Melissa and Kevin.
Go right ahead.
Sure.
Let's get it started.
So if you were with us an hour ago to talk about benefits in general, we're going to get a lot more specific now around open enrollment and show you a bunch of screens of what it looks like for employees, a little bit more detail on how to set things up. One thing Keith said is questions, ask them as we go. There's a ton of information in this slide deck, but not every slide, we just can't cover it all. And so we've done our best to pull out what we think is important for you to know. But definitely ask questions if we come up with something or you see something on a slide or I say something that you go, that's not true, call me on it or whatever.
Yeah.
Or we haven't experienced that, we can talk about that.
And as with the last one, I will be taking the S3 side of it and comparing what we used to have in Lawson against what this is, or what functionality we didn't have that I'll ask Kevin if it's coming up in V11. So I'll try and hit things that you might have questions about, but again, not, please ask.
Okay. The slide of RPI consultants tailored at HCM. RPI is an Infor Alliance partner. We are CloudSuite specialized. We're founded in Baltimore in 1999, but we do have a nationwide practice of consultants. We're able to go anywhere you need us to be at pretty much any time. So what are we going to talk about today? Benefits open enrollment. So we're going to talk a little bit about the setup, what the employees look like, what the experience for the employees is, benefits management. By that I mean, what do benefits folks see? How can they look at what's happening in their open enrollment? How do they manage the open enrollment? Interfaces, and then one slide, I think, on reporting. So setup. The first thing is, if you were on the last one, we said your groups in benefits are really important. And the first thing you need to do is plan out who are your groups of like employees. And this is before you've even worked on your open enrollment. But groups of like employees, because the rules that are put in place for what they see, what they included benefits means what can they elect to enroll in during your open enrollment period. What's by then excluded, what do you let them see, what do you not let them see. If you have groups of people that you want to have doing different enrollment events during the open, or different enrollment for different plans during your open enrollment, you would want to have all those set up as different groups. So that's kind of important. You'll set up organizational rules, which are kind of like the overall settings. And do you want to see things in per pay period, or do you want to see things per month, or do you want to show annual costs? And then you've got the enrollment rules themselves, which set up and govern when people can do the various pieces and parts.
And I kind of want to compare that one to S3. Back in the S3 open enrollment, generally you would use like a benefits all eligible group, and everybody got that, and everybody saw all of the benefits they were eligible for, but you really couldn't customize too much for coverage options or any of those other things. So instead of just one big group, now you have more control over who sees what, even if they may have the same eligibility.
Yeah.
These.
And so let's talk a little bit more about enrollment groups. I call it the basic building block of who sees what. Again, back to different enrollment groups can have different experiences, and we'll show you a slide coming up here of introductory messaging. The important thing to remember about that is you can have different messages sending people to different places, or having different web links in the introduction of your benefits enrollment based on different groups of people. But if you don't split those people into different enrollment groups, everybody sees the same thing. And again, different plans. You can have different plans available to make elections during open enrollment for different groups of people. And this last one is they are based on your benefit groups. So you can't just put together a list of people and call it an enrollment group. They're technically, you build the custom group, tie it to benefits, and then that benefit group is available to be used as an enrollment group, if that makes sense. And so that's kind of one of the basic things to build. Then you've got the enrollment rules. And this is what's going to start showing what employees can see, what they have available, email automation that we'll talk a little bit about, and then passive enrollment. So once you've got your benefit groups of people, you basically start saying, this is the enrollment rule for all full-time benefited people. You can show additional links inside your organization. You can, this one's not set up for passive enrollment, but if you select passive enrollment and pre-select their benefits, the employees really don't have to do anything if they want to keep their benefits going forward. And
So we kind of talked about that in the last one. And if you weren't in the last one, that kind of blows my mind, because back in the S3 world, we have to do a lot of spreadsheet uploads. We have to query all of the benefits they're currently in, build this carefully choreographed spreadsheet of each of the enrollment, each of the plans with the dates and when they're going to end and when the next ones are going to start, and load them up. And it takes weeks and weeks. Well, when I did it by myself, it took weeks and weeks for myself to do it. So this one is a matter of check marking, and if you've already loaded all of their current year benefits in the system, or if you've used benefits for a year, obviously it's not going to work if their benefits are sitting out in S3. But once
we can fix that.
So we can fix that?
We can fix that.
So if I don't want to get everybody in there through an enrollment, what can we do with that?
My attempt at sales, RPI has a tool that will convert your current benefits. We need it in the S3 BN 530, 531 format. We can convert your benefits into elections in GHR. So you don't have to actually have everybody enroll if you don't want to.
So if you want to do passive enrollment, you
do that in September.
And then,
let everybody see their benefits. Their benefits are good. They don't have to do anything for open enrollment.
Yeah, nice.
Little aside.
Yeah.
But here's where you would say, is there an eligibility survey? Do you want to have a question that says, does your spouse have coverage someplace else? You can set these up on the enrollment rules.
And that was something that didn't exist in the old system at all. It was somehow left out, and you would have to customize that or find out outside of the enrollment process.
So the other, and back to the initial comment, was we can't go through every possible thing here on here, but I will point out email automation can live at the enrollment rule level. And so you can set up email automation and templates that go out in various times that we'll show you here in a little bit. But this is where you would set that up. Opening open enrollment, how do you actually set it up? So once you've got your enrollment rules, your enrollment groups built, there's a button called Mass Enrollment and Create Enrollment highlighted. Mass Enrollment, here's where you start looking at the benefit groups. So if you want to roll out open enrollment to, say you've got 5 plants across the country, you want to kind of controlled roll out open enrollment. So you want North Carolina's plant to go live with open enrollment this week. Then you've got one in California you want to go next week. You can set up benefit groups of just those employees. And when you say mass enroll them, it'll roll everybody in California if you've got California as the benefit group.
And that's just, it doesn't enroll them in benefits, it enrolls them in the availability for the open enrollment. So
it sets up their enrollment. So it shows up for them in their email if you have the automation set up that say, hey, we've got your open enrollment ready, go make your elections. Down here you see enrollment period. So say you have a union that by contract only has 2 weeks of open enrollment. You could have a benefit group that says union, and your enrollment period is 10/15 to 10/29. And then you shut it off if you want. Typically, you're going to have it go a little bit longer, so those employees that miss it, you can still go back in as an administrator, track it under your open enrollment election so that you can keep track of what elections were made during open enrollment versus what were not. And so that's, and then you can have any kind of comments that you want to put in there. Create enrollment, that is individual. And you would use that such, say I don't even, somebody made an election, they didn't like it, and you want to let them start over. You can go into the enrollment records, delete Kevin's open enrollment record, and then create a new one for me. And that would be one individual election, or one individual enrollment created.
So what happens if I'm hired in the middle of the open enrollment period? Would you create something like that, or would you send me through a new hire enrollment? Or
mechanically, you get 2.
Okay.
This is open enrollment, so we're not talking about the new hire life event, but in the life events, as a new hire, you're hired in November 15th. Your benefits are your benefits are
Month and a half.
effective December 1st. So you have a new hire event that allows you to make elections under the new hire life event to pick your December elections. You also have the ability to make an open enrollment election.
And so is that where you would create the enrollment for me as a new hire?
You could do it that way,
or would I be kind of captured when you run some of those updates?
You could do it a couple of ways. You could do create enrollment, or you could have another benefit group called All New Hires in November, and just then create all of them at once again. So there's a couple ways you could do that.
Okay.
But they would get 2 events. Communications. So I talked about the email automation. One of the things you're going to want to set up is, what do you want to communicate to people? Not just, and this kind of falls into the enrollment group kind of discussion, is if you want to have different communications set up for different groups of people. And you've got all these different statuses that we'll talk about. In this case, we're just sending when somebody finalizes it, and the benefits team says your benefits are finalized, they're done. Finalized means kind of like set. You made all your elections, you told us what you wanted, and there's a button called Mass Finalize, and once that's done, your benefits are set. And in order for them they can't go back into open enrollment, make any changes. If they want to, they'd have to contact benefits somehow. But when that happens, you can send this email. The other one up here that's not checked, but you could, is confirmation statement. So if you have it set up that when the employee clicks submit to enter their elections, they immediately get a confirmation statement sent to their work email.
Okay.
You can send it with an email template. You can just send it by itself. You can attach a summary plan description if you wanted to. So there's all kinds of really cool automated features that happen during open enrollment. Can be sent manually. That one is, say you've got all the people who are sitting out there with a status of draft. So we've created their enrollment. They've done nothing. It's 1 week until open enrollment closes. Literally with a right click of a mouse, mass send email, you can send an email template to them reminding them to do their open enrollment.
And that's everybody just in the draft,
Just
not
in
by
that
employee
status.
group or
Not by employee
benefit
group.
group, sorry. Yeah.
Just in that draft status.
Cool.
I do have a question here.
Yeah.
So it's a good question, actually. Does the email process use IPA? And I'll let you correct me if I'm wrong, but these are delivered action requests, so they don't use IPA. If you want to do something more elaborate than what's delivered, then you might look at that.
Correct. These are fully out of the box delivered email automation.
Right in the application,
Right in the application. Yep.
which is cool.
Yeah,
and
so you could change the wording to it, but you can't really change like an IPA flow and say, oh, let me trigger it at a different point. That would be a custom one that you would build behind the scenes.
But
and
and then
that off.
kind of to that point, just to clarify this confirmation statement again, that's a delivered PDF that comes from Infor. Is it pretty? Yeah, it does the job. I'll say that. So it's not really customizable, but it gives everything that the employee elected.
Nice to see.
And to that point, there's a tab called Worksheet up here that I didn't point out. Worksheet basically is the same kind of a deal where it's kind of a generically created worksheet from Infor that when you create the status, you could send a PDF of all the things that they're allowed to enroll in with the costs and things like that. Every client I've had has said no. They don't want that paper floating out there where somebody signs on the paper and sends it in and then it's lost.
But it would be nice if...
But you could do that.
Yeah, so if an employee wants to be able to take it home, go over it with their family, really understand what they can do without having to be right in the middle of the application,
And
they're
that would
able to do their planning and then come back and...
Although this is the web-based one, so they can get to it from home too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have a follow-up question here on what is IPA, and I apologize for using the acronym. IPA stands for Infor Process Automation. It's the workflow engine for Lawson and CloudSuite historically, also known as Process Flow. And in the past, every single workflow notification or approval would be through this workflow engine, which is highly customizable, really nice. But now in CloudSuite in version 11, there's just a lot of delivered application action requests and approvals that don't use IPA.
Out of the box, in S3, you had to use IPA. There was no approval flow. There was no decision points. There was no, and we'll talk about some of the things that we used to do in S3 and what's out of the box as we get through the enrollment screens. But if you wanted any kind of notification or any kind of decision point, you had to use IPA, and it was customization to the enrollment process. So this is all out of the box.
And bear with me, this is still kind of the setup. We will get to a couple of screens where I can show you from a benefit manager standpoint just how easy it is to use this delivered functionality. Let's go to a little bit communications during open enrollment. So this is an enrollment rule and this is an example of what you can do in the instruction page. This is pretty basic. But you can use HTML programming to create all the messaging in here. And it's basic. It's basic HTML. You don't even really have to know a whole lot to do it.
It's English.
Yeah, just have to know how to type mostly, which sometimes I don't even know how to do that. But nonetheless, you can create the message in the instructions to the open enrollment. And this is customizable by group of people. So again, back to that first step of setting up your different groups of people. What do you want them to see? Because if you've got a group of physicians that you want to have, non-qualified deferred comp elections made for, you might want to put that in this instructions for them with a link out to if somebody's administering that outside or whatever you want. That's not a really good example, but you could put that in here. And then for a group of people like myself in HR or admin, you would not have that message show up. So that would be a different group of people with a different instruction message that's easily set up. Let's see, what else do we have? So here's where you start looking at by group, what do employees get to see? And again, this is an enrollment rule set up for a group of folks that they can see health, dental, life, and their retirement investments. And this would be different, or could be different than the group of physicians or a group of executives where you want them to make different elections, or you do something where they have an outside life insurance plan, so there's nothing really for them to see. And so you have this piece just not in there.
But in this case, health plan would only show them the health plans that they're eligible for.
Correct.
So I wouldn't need to build a new one with saying different health plans on there. I just based on who I am and what I'm eligible for.
Correct. And in the enrollment rules, you say health plans, but if you have 5 health plans, you would list them down in the plans, and then only the one that I'm eligible for or participate in would show up in my enrollment. That's a really good point. So you don't have to build these, you don't have to build hundreds of these. You build one big enrollment rule, and then I only see what you told me I can see.
Okay,
good. So what do the employees see? Access through employee space. And so you see all the little icons down here. Benefits enrollment is where you go see open enrollment. This is, you can change this from benefits enrollment. You can make that say open enrollment, which is a little easier for employees to understand, as opposed to life events, which are changes during the year. So you can actually change what the text shows. But this is where you access it. And here's what you get when the employees log in. So they're going to see the instruction screen. We've already kind of showed that, so I'm not on the instructions anymore. But we've clicked through the instructions, and we're now on my current benefits. It shows me what my current benefits are, any enrolled dependents in the health plan. If I was clicking on the life insurance plan, basic life, it would show me my beneficiaries. So it shows you your current benefits right here on the screen, so you can keep it. If you've got a passive enrollment set up, they can come in, look at their current benefits, say, yep, I like everything I got, and they're not going to do anything with it. Or they don't have to. So that's your current benefits. This is your your current benefits. These are your dependents. And you can set up dependents on, it shows you who the dependent are and what plan they're enrolled in. So a lot of times employees don't remember, geez, what do I have my wife covered under? Yeah. And you can see it right there. And you can add dependents, you can change dependents, you can take them on, add them, remove them, update them if you want, or you can allow them to do nothing. And that's something that you set up in the rules.
If I add a dependent here, they'll be ready for me to add them to plans when I go through my enrollment. Because in S3, You would have to add them outside the enrollment process. They may or may not show up when you're ready to do your enrollment.
Yeah. Oh, and it gets better, frankly. You can add them here in the dependent screen, or you can go to the enrollment, click on family coverage, and say you have no dependents, and you can add it.
Oh, so I don't even have to go out and go
no.
back and then try and get back
Nope.
into my enrollment. Nice.
It's really
a lot
slick.
smoother. Yeah.
So dependents.
What
and then-
happens if I haven't put in a dependent verification yet?
So that's a really good question. GHR benefits allows you to, not just in open enrollment, but allows you to pend coverage. So in your basic setup for your benefits, outside open enrollment, just your overall setup for your benefits program, you can have dependents automatically confirmed, is what they call it, where I put them in and they're eligible to be covered under the benefit plan. Or you can say, I want to have them pended in case I want to if I want to collect all the birth certificates or marriage licenses, things like that. When you enter a dependent, it's going to show up as available, but it's going to pend the coverage until you provide that proof.
So in the old days, that was custom programming. We would have to put a flow that says,
fully delivered.
Let's move these dependents out here and wait and not process them. And if they don't bring in verification, then we only process employee-only benefits. So
Yep.
this is all out of box, right?
It's out of box. Yep. Same thing with your beneficiaries. One little trick, and this is if it doesn't add up to 100%, it stops you.
Another thing that didn't happen in the old days.
It literally will not let you off the screen until your beneficiaries equal to 100%.
Okay.
So it's a little annoying, but it obviously serves a pretty good purpose. Here is one example of what employees see when they click on enrollment. And by the way, I've just been clicking the next button down here. Is one way to get around. You can actually just click on current benefits, then go down to enrollment, and then click on the different plans if you want. If you go next, it's going to literally tick right down the plans. But here in enrollment, you can change your smoker status. So this is some of the setup for the questions that you have, or you might be able to put in place, and you put those on your rules. Then you've also got a spouse survey question if you want to collect if your spouse has coverage someplace else. This will allow you to do that. If you make these required questions, you can't finalize benefits until the employee has answered them.
Okay.
So that's a little trick. So if you've got 10,000 employees and there's no way to force them to make that election, but if they don't, it's easy to find out who didn't because you'll get an error. But the employee can't have their benefits finalized until they've got that question answered.
Great.
So what does an enrollment look like? And one thing to point out, I don't know if I put this, I think I have a slide on it. You've noticed if we go from here, you've got all these little green check marks there. Oops, too far back. Those green check marks means that somebody has been on that screen and has looked at that screen. And you can see that as a benefit administrator. You can see if somebody has actually been in and doing things. So this is what an enrollment looks like. So you can see that you've got the premium health plan somebody's picked, and here are the dependents, and they've picked family. If you, and then this one, and you've looked at all the different plans that this person had back here to look at. They've got all these plans they can look at. This person doesn't have any. They've got health, dental, life, and retirement. And so that's all that those people get to see. And again, the green check marks show all the setups there.
So do I have somewhere to put my SPDs and information on rates? So I don't know the difference between, I've got 3 health plan options and I don't know the difference between them.
You could put those in the instructions up here.
Okay.
You could have a link out to your internal website, which would show that. Or if you've got somebody if you've got them out on outside your firewall, you could link out to the website outside your firewall. There's a lot of different things that you could do to show those.
Okay.
The other thing you could do is in the email automation. Let's see if I've got a screen I think that shows that. There's the ability for, it was on the email templates. You've got the documents drop down. I won't go all the way back into the slides. But in addition to sending an automated email, when you click submit, you could send a document of all the SPDs.
Okay.
And have it set up where you've got all your SPDs in a big PDF and just send them out. So you could do that as well.
Okay.
Again, the point I wanted to show on this one is all that email or all those enrollment rules that you set up by different eligible or different enrollment groups dictate which plans they have available for enrollment. And so that's where, again, the first thing you need to do is figure out who are your groups of employees and what do you want them to see. Some of the cool pieces of this, the geeky cool, is the system will enforce your rules. And I know this is hard to read, but this is like a health savings account. I want to enroll in a health savings account, but I can't because I don't have a high deductible health plan. Okay. And so it's kind of confusing to some people. I want to enroll. It allows me to get the box open to say I want to enroll in a health savings account. But if I have not picked a high deductible health plan, as soon as I hit enter, it's going to say, you can still see the behind there, enroll in the savings account. It's kind of hidden. But it says you don't have the right, you don't have a prerequisite plan, so you can't do it. And so that's automated kind of safety stuff, if you will, that doesn't allow somebody to enroll in what they are not supposed to enroll in. Here is, you see on the left side, I've gone down to review and submit now. So I've made all my elections. And this is an error that you're going to see sometimes. They selected a plan with dependents and they didn't enter any dependents. And so that red arrow, the red exclamation point means they cannot submit their benefits. So they can't make an election and send it in for family coverage without family members on it.
Okay. And same thing would happen if they selected all 4 dependents, but they only selected employee and spouse?
Correct.
They would get an error.
They would get an error with that too. A warning, this one is basically same type of a warning. What you'll also get is a warning if they made an election for supplemental life that goes over the guaranteed issue amount. They're going to get a warning that says you need to provide evidence of insurability for that. And it's not going to stop their election, but it's going to tell them they need to provide, it's going to tell them on the screen they need to provide evidence of insurability. The other thing it's going to do is in the maintenance tab up here, as soon as that warning is put in place, they show up on a form called evidence of insurability. So you don't have to chase these down. There's a report that shows everybody that elected too much and who needs to provide evidence of insurability.
So in turn, if they didn't provide it, they'll just go back down to the guaranteed amount.
Correct.
And the system does it for you. You don't have to
Correct.
Go in there and write logic or anything that says, okay, hey, what to do with these people.
And in your overall benefits setup, this is not specific to open enrollment, but when you set up your life insurance plans, there's a whole area of where you define the evidence of insurability limits. You can also have email automation set up all the way down at that level that says if they hit the evidence of insurability requirement, send them an email saying you elected over the amount. And that would happen as part of your open enrollment, even though it's defined in your regular benefits setup.
Would I be able to attach the EOI form in that?
Out of the box, kinda.
Yeah. Well, and you could probably put a link.
You could put a link out to your carrier. Mm-hmm. If you really want to get super fancy, you could, I think it's called an HTML call, where you could basically hot link out into it, fill out what you need to have filled out, and then come back into your system.
Okay.
You could up if you want to. That would be a configuration that would need to be done. But those types of abilities are available out of GHR.
Nice, nice.
And then the last thing this throws is this shows shows their cost per pay period. And if you had this set up that there were no errors or warnings, and you click submit, what you're going to get is you're going to get a PDF up here of their confirmation statement that you, in theory, just sent to them through the email automation. So they'll get it in their email, and then the second thing they would get is they would have the ability to click on it right here and print it as well. So they can get their confirmations immediately.
Okay.
And for those of you who like this kind of detail, the confirmation statement has a timestamp on it. So
yes,
that's been a question before.
Yeah. They can't fake something and say, hey, look, I enrolled in this, put me in this benefit,
Correct.
2 months later.
So here's a summary. Let's talk a little bit about benefits management. The system tracks all your enrollment by progress. And so you've got on the far left, there's nobody in draft. You've got a bunch of people in started. You've got some people who have submitted. Submit pending is that third bar. That is, they've clicked the submit button, they've sent their benefits in, and then they went back in the system and said, ooh, I want to change something. And that's what submit pending means. And then finalized is the action that the benefits team has or somebody has taken to kind of close out that person's benefit. And once that's happened, they can't really do anything else. One thing you see up here on the top left under the open enrollment is mass send email or mass finalize. So you can basically finalize everybody that's in the started status. If enrollment closed, they didn't make any elections, you finalize their benefits. You can send a mass email to any of these groups of people to remind them that, hey, you haven't made your elections, you haven't even started anything. And you can just like right click on it, and that's an option as well. And it takes, as long as you've got the templates built, it's very
So you can have a
easy.
different template for each
Correct.
status.
Yep. Reevaluate eligibility. So what this is if you've got a high turnover organization, and you're a 10,000 person organization, and you turn over 300 or 400 people every month, that's 3 or 4 times 2 or 3, however long your open enrollment's open, that would potentially be sitting in any of those statuses, and they're not even employees anymore. If you hit reevaluate eligibility, it will pull all those people out of your benefits enrollment system. So you don't have to worry about them. And you can either inactivate them or delete them. I wouldn't recommend you delete them. I would recommend at least you move them to inactive. That way you can look at them and make sure that they're
truly gone.
Truly gone. If you transfer and no longer are eligible for benefits, you would show up that way too in the reevaluating eligibility.
Or what happens if I transfer to a group that is eligible for different benefits? So
That's a little bit different than this.
Right. So at this point, you would probably delete my enrollment and let me enroll again?
And create a new one. So reevaluate eligibility is basically taking stuff out that shouldn't be in there. If you're moving around or you're new into it, you would basically create their enrollments that time.
We have a few questions here,
Sure.
but I figure we're almost towards the end, so we'll ask them here in a couple of
Okay.
minutes. I just want to let people know we're going to ask your questions here in
Okay,
just a
cool.
second.
And we are almost finished up here. I got one slide on reports. The reports is basically you can report by resource, by plan. There's a delivered dependent benefit report, so you can see which benefits are in the plans, which dependents are covered, and for which plans. And kind of the catch-all that's not here is any list. Anytime you open a screen with a list, you can run a report off of it. You can personalize that screen, which gives you you could add columns in here if you want. If you wanted to have this happens to be a 401k one, it looks like, or a defined benefit one. You could have their salary added to that if you
Or
wanted
like
it.
if I want to say how many years of service do they
You
have,
could-
if
yep.
you want to add it to like a
You could
pension
do all of
or
that.
something.
And so reporting is as robust in benefits as it is everywhere else in the GHR system. So that's the end of the prepared slides we have. So we got questions.
Yeah, we do. We have a few here. So
Sure.
the first one is, if we use an outside vendor, can their current benefits be uploaded into Infor without having to build 2 sets of rules? I don't know if I have that out of context now.
Yeah, so if you're using an outside vendor, you would have to set up the plans for all of them to go into, so they could just be dropped in and be available. So you would be essentially maintaining plans in 2 systems. And I'm not sure, is the question, do they want them to use this enroll? Is this a better user experience for an enrollment screen, so you want them to enroll here and then send it back to your third party?
I think that's the question.
Yeah, it seems like it would be a lot of
Work.
maintenance and work because it's not just your enrollment, right? You have to ensure that all the plans are set up, the eligibility is set up, the rates are set up.
Yeah, and it's not
rules.
you can't just upload. GHR is all process driven, so you can't just upload data into a field in benefits. We have an IPA that will do the enrollment process from a flat file. But as Melissa said, it would be a lot of maintenance work. If we have your question right.
Yeah. Next question. Sorry, there's a lot here, so I'm just going to get to it. Do we have to follow the Infor cadence, or can we change the flow? I think this is
the flow of the
related
user
to
experience.
how the employee is going through the check marks?
Generally, the only thing that's out of the box changes is, do you want dependents and beneficiaries separated? Or do you want them combined? But the general functionality is all delivered out of Infor.
Yeah,
I
but
imagine-
you can
I imagine-
change the order of the
benefit plans,
the
you
benefit
could,
plans,
yeah,
right?
so you can,
'cause
instead of health, dental, vision, you could go retirement, vision,
Mm-hmm.
dental. That's out of the box. But if you want to change the flow itself from instructions to, I mean,
to
the tabs
enrollment
itself,
and then cover, yeah.
you probably could through configuration console.
But yeah, it's most likely the plans. If you want your plans, if you want to do your
Mm-hmm.
life insurance plans first and then your health, that is configurable. I mean, you set that up, and I think Kevin had a screen before
Yeah, so
about
like this one,
where
if you wanted to have life, dental, health, that's very simple.
When attaching dependents for a family plan, does GHR know that a family plan needs one spouse and at least one child?
Yes.
Just how smart is it? Okay, that's really impressive. Can dependents be created for various plans? In other words, must enroll in supplemental life to be eligible for spouse-child life.
Yes, that's a
Yes.
prerequisite plan.
That specific example, yes.
Cool. Does Infor have a tool to convert benefits to GHR, or is the tool RPI specific to RPI? So I don't know if Infor has a tool,
They
but we have one.
didn't as the last.
As
I
of,
mean,
yeah,
might.
as of 6 months ago, Infor didn't have a tool that we're aware of, so we created one.
Yeah.
And we just keep
RPI did.
using ours because it's super
works.
efficient and we know
But we
how.
can't vouch for Infor not having one or not
I
having
can't
one
say if they do or
developed.
not.
It's just-
Since we have a tool, I stopped asking.
Yeah, exactly.
We can ask Amy tomorrow.
we could, yeah.
Amy Island will be here tomorrow and we can talk
She
to her
will.
about
Amy Allen will be here tomorrow doing a couple presentations, so please
product
join us for that.
manager over the whole GHR product.
Yeah.
If we change to Infor from an outside vendor, can the benefits be uploaded to be viewed?
Same thing.
Yeah.
If you need to build those benefit plans to enroll them in there, and then you can view them. And you can still use your third party to do your open enrollments and push your enrollments over. So that's kind of the opposite of the other one. If you just have somebody that does your enrollments, you can still have that person. Maybe it's a third party that answers questions for your employees and does, just an outsourced benefits administrator.
Or frankly, you could go as far as creating a security role for your third-party vendor that all they can do is do benefit enrollments. They couldn't look things up, or you can give them full benefits access.
That's a good point.
And they could do it all for you from a call center.
So I have another question that always comes up, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot here, is retirement plans.
Okay.
I want to be able to go in and change my contributions throughout the year. So in the past, we've been limited because open enrollment is only open during the time that you define, and new hire and life event enrollment has to have an event that opens it up for an employee. But retirement can happen anytime, anywhere. So is there a way that you could push this out in an enrollment without any other plans? Can you create a group? Or
Yeah, you
and
could
have it
create
open
a
year-round?
life event called retirement plan change,
Okay.
where the employee goes out and says, back to that very first screen of the icons, instead of life event, you could have it say mid-year benefit changes. And they click on that, and one thing that's available is change my retirement plan. And the only thing that's available in that entire life event is the 401k.
Okay.
So you could do that.
And maybe even vacation buy sell, because I know that sometimes
You could.
some organizations like to do that year round and not just.
Yeah, I've not actually had somebody that does vacation buy sell year round. It's always been once.
It's always been
Yeah.
1 year. Yeah.
That would be crazy.
Well, I get these questions from clients, and we've never been able to in S3, and to figure out the logic to have that open year round is essentially rewriting ESS for benefits.
But it sounds like it could be done here.
But
with benefit.
it sounds pretty easy to do it since you're able to create as many different life events as possible. You're not limited to
Yeah, you
the
can do
6 or 7
50
that
if you
they
want.
used to roll out.